Welcome to My Forever Home, the podcast. I'm Frances Cosway and I've helped hundreds of people create forever homes. I can't wait to share the journey with you. So let's start. Hi everyone and welcome to the Forever Home podcast, the Kitchen Design Essentials season. And we are now up to episode 14 of the Kitchen Design season. And it's hard to believe that we could have 14 different episodes all about kitchens and we've still got at least another 6 to go. So it just goes to show you how much information there is to know about kitchens. Now today I'm really excited to have our guest here, which is Trisha Narde from Reece. And Trisha, or Trish, I call her Trish, which you probably need to call her Trisha, is going to join me today to talk about all things taps and sinks, and do we go black, do we not go black, and also about Billi and Zip taps. So this is a really awesome episode to get into the nitty-gritty of exactly why you would pay a little bit extra to get a really good quality sink, and the same for your taps, because I get asked that a lot in terms of, well, I can just go and get a really cost-effective sink, but it may not be going to serve you for a long period of time. So welcome, Trish.
Hello, Frances.
Now, I should have sorted this out. Am I going to be calling you Trish or Trishsala? Because I love Trishsala.
Trisha.
Trisha.
Trishla.
Yeah, Trishla, okay. So welcome today. And just to give you a little bit of background on Trish, she's actually studied interior design and landscape design. Very, very clever lady. And she's been working at Reece for 10 years now. And she's actually our main point of contact with a couple of other people from Reece. So we've had a relationship for quite a while now. And I'm so happy to have her here to be able to go through all the nitty gritty of sinks and taps. Are you ready?
Am I ready?
Of course you are. So just give me a bit of a rundown in terms of, I suppose, the overall for Reece in terms of the sorts of taps and sinks that you provide just overall in that space, in the kitchen space.
With sinks and taps in the kitchen space at Reece, as you know, we have quite a few brands under our own Reece umbrella. We try to get a lot of reliable brands on board as well, where we know the quality and longevity and warranty of those products.
Yeah.
So I think kitchens are huge, and they are one of the rooms that get used a lot by everyone in the family.
All right, so let's start with taps. Now, just to get your insight, I mean, obviously we talk to clients about this all the day, but I'd love to get your expertise on what do you think some of the main things that people need to consider when they're looking for a kitchen tap?
With a kitchen tap, definitely we normally get customers to think about the way that they use their sinks and taps. A lot of times we find a gooseneck tap, curved gooseneck gives you a little bit of height, so you can get larger pots and pans underneath the neck. So that's
completely agree. Yeah,
absolutely very practical example. The other thing is if where it's going to sit. So a very heavy tap that you can pull out, we don't recommend it sit on a sink. So on those lines where the tap is going to sit, whether you have a window behind the tap or not, a lot of our customers say that they because there's a window with a very low sill, they want a smaller tap.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, those kinds of things. And also the lever, we find longer levers are easier to maneuver than shorter ones. And we also now have sensor taps.
Well, that was the next thing I was going to ask you. What's the latest of the latest? So talk us through sensor taps.
Yeah, so as we all know, with messy hands in the kitchen, when you've got dough and all of that and you don't want to mess your beautiful tap, we've just recently released a sensor tap. So you can use it as a lever. At the same time, you can use it as a sensor as well. So just with your elbow or with your palm, you just go close to it on one side and it turns on.
Oh, that's fantastic. So that's like at the, dare I say, the public loos, that you can just run your hands in front of the sensor and it automatically turn on.
That's right. And we really need it in kitchens, I think, because even with, as I say, messy hands or hot food and colored food, turmeric. I use turmeric in cooking.
Yeah. No, I can absolutely see it. I can just think about when I've got, dough or just really sticky hands, and just being able to put your hands, that's awesome. I think I better upgrade my tap now. Also really good for kids, actually, especially when they're a bit little. I can envisage that instead of trying to grab the lever, they can just put their hand in front of there and then they can turn the tap on.
Absolutely.
So what's the starting price on a tap like that, just out of curiosity?
Those ones are around $900.
Okay.
But I think a good price to pay for reliable tap would be around $700 to $900.
Yeah.
Or $600 to $900.
So it's sort of comparable. That's an awesome feature. That's really good. And then what about in terms of then quality, what sets apart a more cost-effective tap? So let's say something that's a little bit on the cheaper side versus a tap that is, quite a bit more expensive. So let's say around the $900 mark. Is that based on the brand alone? Because we know sometimes we pay for brands like with anything, or are there other things that make a tap a better quality?
Grower taps are great quality.
And is that because of their construction in terms of the materials that they're using or the cartridge inside?
Yes, there's quite a few different things. So there's some technologies in taps that there's something called zero, or they call it the grower zero, which means there's an inlet pipe within the tap. So the water does not touch any other part of the tap. It just comes directly through the hose outside into your glass. Mm-hmm. So there's technologies like the Grower Zero or the Silk Move technology, which is all about the cartridge, how smoothly it operates, and they're easier to operate, and they give you a higher degree of control as well.
Okay, and so I'm assuming then that something like that wouldn't be available in a more cost-effective tap?
No, absolutely not.
And so if you're talking about that zero technology, I'm guessing then that with a cheaper tap, the water that can then get into the other components, which would then lead it to maybe misfunctioning more easily, is one of the issues that would come about with a cheaper tap.
Absolutely. And also cheaper taps we find are thinner, like the skin on them, if you call it.
Yeah, the skin.
Thinner. So yes, so out of the outlet, we've had customers come with split outlets that needed replacing because it was just a cheap tap in the laundry. So yes, something that's cast out of a solid piece of brass, which some of our local suppliers actually, there's a beautiful company called Sussex Taps.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I bet you're talking about Sussex, yeah.
Yes, they manufacture everything right here in Australia, in Melbourne, actually, and they cast out of solid blocks of brass. They're hand polished, and they're just amazing weight and quality of the product.
Absolutely. We're big fans at White Pebble of Sussex. We always try and specify it for so many different reasons. I also love the way they recycle the offcuts of the brass, so all the elements are completely recycled. So I think they've got a fabulous sustainable story as well, which is always music to my ears. Yeah. And I suppose because of the listeners on this podcast, it's very much around forever home. So I really feel that it's worth spending a little bit more on a tap that's going to be used on such a regular basis, so much more than your bathroom tap, and by everyone in the house, not just your ensuite tap that's really just you and your partner. And so it really needs to work so much harder for you than any other tap in the house. So I think if there's one tap you're going to spend money on, it really needs to be your kitchen tap. So we have a lot of our clients ask expressly for Australian made. So I know some, Broadware and Sussex, but are there any other makes of Australian Australian-made taps that you can point out to our listeners?
No, actually, they're the only two that we know of as well.
Yeah, it's a shame that Dorf used to be made in Australia, but they're not any longer.
I know, they're designed in Australia.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of stuff that's designed in Australia, but doesn't quite go through to the manufacturing. So, and then in terms of warranty for a kitchen tap, which brands have got some of the best warranties around?
Well, most kitchen taps now come with at least 7-year warranties, up to 15 years even. So Sussex, Nobili, Grower, Mizu even, all come with 15-year warranties. However, Grower leads the market because they offer 5 years on parts and labor as well.
Mm-hmm.
Normally a labor warranty, which covers someone coming up to you and replacing a part, would only be covered under 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Grower are leading the industry with 5 years, which is amazing to know that if my cartridge were to burst, someone will take responsibility and come and replace it for me for up to 5 years.
It is great. I mean, Grower is such a great company. It's funny, when I lived in Europe, Grower is just the name that everyone goes to. It's just your absolute bread and butter. Here it's more of a premium product. It's more of a high-end product, but in Europe, it's just your absolute go-to. And it's just such amazing quality. A lot of the products don't actually even make it to Australia, but we do get the really good ones, the good products that a lot of the entry level stuff that they have in Europe from Grower doesn't come out to Australia. I suppose it's not worth their while. But yeah, I love it. That's all I ever had in my apartments overseas. Anything else that you wanted to mention about taps? Oh, I cannot go without asking you about, and I know we talk about this when I'm sometimes hosting the bathroom event at Reece, but we talk about black. Now, black in a kitchen, I have a bit of a different view on. So what's your view about black and other coloured taps in the kitchen?
The coloured taps in the kitchen work fantastically, actually, for people who do not want to really experiment in the bathroom, where someone doesn't want to worry about matching their taps and shower and towel rails and basin taps and everything, but still wants that excitement of a coloured piece of tap at home. They generally invest in a beautiful coloured tap in the kitchen only, and then everything else and at home can stay chrome, which will last forever. But just that excitement and just a piece, basically, a piece of
a statement
piece. Yes.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that the rule of everything has to match is broken when it gets to your kitchen. I think that you can definitely have something different, and it doesn't need to match with everything else in the house. And you can have your statement piece, all the coloured metals that were so big so long ago. And I know there's still quite a few more of the organic colours. I think the living metals, there's definitely an opportunity to have a bit more fun in the kitchen and not have to worry about, as you say, matching up all the accessories that you'd have in your bathroom as well. So, yeah. Now, just tell me then also on the black tapware. This comes up a lot as well in a lot of the forums that I follow, and clients ask, if you are going to buy a black tap, what do you need to look out for to make sure? I think some of the biggest complaints about black taps is the black actually wears off over time, and you see it in cafes. You go, to a cafe powder room, and the black's all worn off. So what do you need to look out for when you're buying a black tap?
When you're buying a black tap, it's the way that the process that it's plated with is very, very important. There's 3 different types of plating processes. The toughest being a PVD finish.
PVZ?
PVD.
D, right, okay, PVD.
PVD, which is the strongest finish, which even if you leave the tap outdoors is completely fine. Then the second strongest finish is electroplating. Electroplating is done exactly the way chrome is chrome tap plated.
Mm-hmm.
So those finishes will be just as strong as one another.
Yes.
Electroplating is stronger, and then is powder coating. So powder coating is the least expensive to create, manufacture, and sell as well. So yes, that's when the powder coating can come off quite easily, and also by using harsh chemicals on taps can oftentimes, if not straight away, but over 2 or 3 years, take away the plating of a tap. So absolutely, PVD or electroplated finishes are completely fine, and it's not using very harsh chemicals on them, such as bleach.
Yeah.
Because yes, absolutely, not within a year, but over 5 or 6 years, you will notice that things are eroding.
I mean, I think anything that's electroplated is really, for me, it's something that you look at and you can't really use. It might be okay for a plant stand but anything that's going to have a surface that you're going to be using a lot, touching a lot, or, as a bench, or I see outdoor furniture that's powder coated, I think you just have to look at that, and it's going to scratch or it's going to wear off. So yeah, I didn't know about the PVD, but the electroplating is always what I suggest. And I mean, you'll pay for it, but then it's going to last. For me, it almost seems like a false economy to buy the powder coated, the really cheap black tap or the colour, and you're going to have to replace it in a couple of years anyway because it's going to wear off. So it's sort of money for nothing. But that's great advice.
Yeah, that's true. Thanks. And PVD is quite a new finish as well. It's new to the Australian market. It's pressure vapor disposition.
Right, and that's really for your outdoor. So for the outdoor kitchens, you'd have a PVD because electroplating wouldn't necessarily stand the distance.
Exactly. So outdoors or commercial, like restaurants, would be ideal places for PVD.
Okay, and obviously that will come with a price tag as well. But at least we know in a standard domestic setting, electroplated is absolutely going to stand the distance.
Yeah.
Great stuff. So I think that's pretty much covered kitchen taps, and there's a lot more to know than just choose one that you like. I mean, I know, about in the 90s, they had the big, massive commercial. You had to have the big pull out and that big, massive coil around it. I've still got a couple of clients that like those. I certainly am a big fan of having a small pull-out nozzle. I think it's really handy for cleaning your sink and your veggies. Any other little gadgets that, apart from this sensor, any other little things that you advise? I really do like the pull-out nozzle.
Yes, the pull-out nozzle with a spray function built in as well is great for just getting pressurized spray onto stubborn stains. And also getting into the corners of the kitchen sink to clean out all the corners.
For washing a lettuce and leeks where the dirt is in.
The veggie spray. That's right. To get the sand off. Yes. So pull out spray with a veggie spray option. Amazing. I cannot live without one.
Oh, that sounds great. And so can I get my pull-out spray in the laundry and wash my dog?
Yes, 100%. Why not?
Because now I'm just using a bucket, a little hand thing to wash my dog. So I need to replace my laundry tap with the veggie spray to wash my dog with the veggie sprayer. Excellent.
Yes, and even kids' shoes, I think, just to get like mud.
That hard dirt.
Yes.
Yeah, it sounds good. Well, they're I think everyone's sorted now on kitchen taps, and why it's really important to get. I think that the point that you raised before, I think is really important, and that is around the thickness of the metal, the quality of the cartridge, which is obviously the mechanism of how your tap works, but just even that piece of metal that is this, as you said, the skin of the tap. If that's really not very thick, it's just really not going to stand the test of time. So it's more for houses that you're going to flip rather than your forever home. All right, so I wanted to talk about Billi and Zip taps. I know that we're talking about brands there, and for listeners, that is all around those taps that have boiling water, ice water, sparkling water, pretty much any sort of water to your heart's desire. There's a lot of things that I see with the, what's the generic term? I just call them Billi or Zip taps, really.
Yes, they're normally just called zip taps, but they're instant water dispensers.
Yeah.
So you can get boiling water instantly, chilled, and or sparkling instantly. So with Zip is just a brand that's been around forever and that manufactures these taps, and Billi is another Australian company that does them. Zip has a great market presence. They do have beautiful colors and styles. They are usually 30% more costly compared to Billi. Billi haven't got as many beautiful designs. They've got a smaller range, but they are fantastic products and with actually longer warranties compared to Zip.
Okay, so what's the warranty on a Zip tap compared to a Billi?
Surprisingly, Zip taps are only covered under 12-month warranty.
Wow.
And Billi is 2 years.
Okay. And I know that Billi have heaps of colours. I mean, I've seen them at the trade shows. It's like rose gold, this gold, all the different colours. So there's the opportunity to have a bit of bling in if you want to have your rose gold. Or the metal colour of your choice. I think they're even doing enamel now as well.
Enamel, yes.
Yeah. So lots of things available. And so are they both made in Australia?
The Zip is manufactured in the US, I think. I should confirm. Billi is Australian. So they're the two leading brands of instant water units. There's a lot more to it because there's a large kind of mechanism, the box that sits underneath in your cabinetry. That's where water stays warm or cold. So there's a few things to consider if you're thinking of a Zip or Billi tap.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting point because I've found that it's been specified and the cabinetry is not reflecting the fact that there is going to be a Billi or a Zip tap. And you need to have basically a cupboard of 600 millimeters to be able to house the unit that you need to produce this instant hot, cold and sparkling water. And you also need to have a vent. Legally, I have seen people try and get around it, but legally you need to have a vent to allow it to cool down. And so that can also impact the aesthetic. You need to work out where the event's going to go. Sometimes you can have it in the kicker. Sometimes it needs to be on the front of the door. But so many times I've seen the want, but it hasn't been designed for. So it's really important if you've got a small kitchen and you want one of those taps, you're going to have to give up a cupboard to have it.
Yes, which is a huge, huge sacrifice.
It is.
In a small kitchen.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, I have had conversations with clients where, you know, it's the big debate. Do we have it in our main kitchen? Do we have it in the walk-in pantry? And I really think it comes down to whether you want it in the main kitchen because that's where you're going to use it the most, or do you want it sort of out of sight and where you can perhaps house it in the pantry a little bit more easily? Do you find that clients generally put them in their pantries or in the kitchen?
They are absolutely 50-50. Yeah. So we find where there is a large walk-in pantry available and the kitchen is just more an aesthetic space, a minimalist space, then people usually have it in the kitchen and do all the hard work in the laundry, pantry. So the pantry sink and pantry tap would have to be very hard-working taps, and then the beautiful tap can stay in the kitchen.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we found that households that use entertain heavily or cook heavily constantly, and where they will need boiling water for pasta, you know, at least twice a day, then they have it in the kitchen because it's more useful for them there. Yeah,
it's just more accessible.
Accessible, exactly.
And so talk to us a little bit about pricing. So, you know, what sort of price do they start at? Because you can get, my understanding is just the single hot water or just cold water, chilled water, or you can get all three. So what is sort of pricing?
Yes. So they start at about $3,000
Yep.
and can go all the way up to $7,000 for something that's brushed gold, finished with sparkling as well as chilled and boiling. So it is a fair bit of investment, but yes, if there is no other way around it, it's something
you get it.
You need to have it.
I had a client, it was quite funny. The wife was very much, we don't need this, we're simple people, we don't need this fancy tap palaver. And then the husband was like, we have to have this tap, I need to have it. She put it, no, we're not having it. And it was just really funny. I was on site one day and then all of a sudden there it arrives. And she's like, what is this? And not only did he got the whole lot, he got hot water, chilled and sparkling. And she said, sparkling's really bad for your teeth. I can't believe you in the house. And it was just such a funny story. He just went and ordered it without her even knowing. And there she didn't have a choice.
Can I ask you a question about sustainability in terms of Billi taps? I think personally that they're like hot water units that's to store hot water.
Correct.
And we're getting away from those things. So to have a unit that's running 24/7, even when you're sleeping, to keep your water hot or cold. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's exactly that. It's like you've got another little refrigerator going on to keep the water chilled. You've got another little mini hot water service. As you say, those things are on 24/7 constantly because you need it constantly. So it is something that is using energy. So it is going to cost not only just the price to the outlay to get that tap installed, but it is actually going to use energy just to keep it boiling and to keep it cold. So yes, sustainability, it's using energy so that you can have this instant boiling or refrigerated water. So I'm a pretty simple person. Like, we don't have one. I put cold water in the fridge, or you can get the fridge taps where your fridge is going anyway. So you can just get your ice from the fridge and you can get your running water from the fridge. I've lived in a house with one, and it's really nice to have the boiling water. We really don't drink enough hot drinks. I have a coffee machine, so I can't justify the cost or the space. And I think that that's something that you need to assess in your own kitchen. Do I want to be using that energy? And how much is it really worth for me? I'd prefer to put my money into an awesome fridge and have all those things on hand, and boil a kettle, which when you buy a really good kettle for $150, it takes a couple of seconds to boil. I don't have an issue with that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That's my view, but I'm a bit of a simple person, and it is nice to think that it's there, but I can't justify using that energy just to have it instant.
Yeah.
The once a day that I'm going to have a cup of tea. But as you said, if people are making pasta twice a day or whatever and they need it, you might be able to justify it a little bit more. It's a personal thing.
Yes, 100%.
All right, let's get on to sinks. So definitely all sinks are not the same. And I've had so many clients that just choose a really cheap $100 sink, thinking that, okay, it's the same size, it looks similar, why would I spend money on a sink? But there's lots of different ways to rate your sink. So I'd love you to go through the different gauge of stainless steel and just what you get when you're paying more money to get a really good quality sink. What sits in a good quality sink?
So in a good quality sink, stainless steel is basically the combination of chromium and nickel in a stainless steel product, which is normally 18 by 10.
Yep.
So it's 18% chromium and 10% nickel used in that. That's also called 304 grade of stainless steel.
Mm-hmm.
So 304 grade stainless steel or higher is better because it will not rust.
Mm-hmm.
If there's more quantity of iron in it or not enough chromium in it, then you can get those issues. So a good percentage of the 18 to 10 and also the gauge of stainless steel. So gauge is equals thickness of a stainless steel, and the lower the number, the higher, greater the thickness. So you want a 16 gauge is a very common gauge. 16 to 18 is common for kitchen sinks. So again, a thicker grade of steel helps the sink from getting dented. Also noise. So the thicker the sink, it will absorb more noise as well. Also, some brands of stainless steel have sound deadening pads underneath them. So on the other side of the sink that you can't see, they have sound deadening pads, and also anti-condensation spray onto them. So when you tip very cold or very hot water, the moisture won't form on the other side of the sink inside your cabinet and won't lead to mold or anything like that in places that you can't see. So yes, absolutely, the gauge, the thickness of the steel is extremely important.
So with the I know some of the really cheap sinks, you sort of put your palms in them and they sort of buckle almost. You can hear them. It's almost like a musical instrument. They buckle. Right. Not until I mention that to clients, they're like, oh yeah, I never really thought about that. And so the thick gauge is normally, I normally look at around 3 mil as being a good thickness. Is that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it means that it's not going to have that buckling effect. And also with those cheaper sinks, you're talking about rust. So I'm assuming then around the taps and things that starts to rust. So that's, for me, 2 good reasons not to go and get a really cheap and cheerful sink.
Definitely. It's also the polishing on it. So any stainless steel material will scratch no matter what. It's just the quality of the material itself. The way that they're polished internally, like the parts that you can see, and the better polishing they have, the fewer scratches you can see on them. And the easier they are to repair as well. So a very highly polished stainless steel sink will show less scratches.
Okay. And then, this is also one area where, we've actually got some that are made in Australia. So can you just go through some of the brands that are made in Australia?
Yes, so Oliveri is one of the brands that is manufactured in Australia. Most of our other ones come from Switzerland. Frankie is a brand that is a Swiss brand. They got a few different factories in different continents, but the ones we get are from Switzerland. But not many other stainless steel kitchen sink suppliers. There are a few. Reece stainless steel, for example, is someone who can make steel sinks for you. So if you like a molded surface, like if you wanted an entire stainless steel bench top with the steel, the sink as part of it, then that's something that Reece can do in Australia.
What about Clark? Is Clark a made in Australia brand?
We'll have to check. A lot of them, again, are kind of like, designed in Australia
and then
made elsewhere. But I will double check that.
Oh, that's okay. And it changes all the time. You need to be on top of it because it's quite tricky when you Google some of these brands as well, because we often do to check, and they really try and avoid if it's made in Australia or not by really focusing on the fact it's designed in Australia, and it changes all the time. So walk me through, this is a really common thing, the key differences between an undermount, a flush mount, and an inset sink, and why you may go for one over the other.
Okay, that's a big topic. So undermount sinks are visually attractive because you don't see the rim of the sink on your stone.
Great.
It kind of hides under the stone top. With undermount sinks, they're easier to keep clean. You kind of get a little more depth. If you think about the sink is sitting underneath the 20 mil of your bench top, so you get that extra 20 millimeter depth into your sink. Undermount sinks can only be used with stone tops. They cannot be used on a laminate top,
for
example. And with undermounted sinks, also because the edge of the stone is visible, that needs to be polished. So that's an additional cost.
It can make it a bit more expensive, but I agree the aesthetic is just so much nicer. The reason I love them is because they wipe so easily. You just basically wipe straight in. You don't have that little bit, that lip that you get stuff caught under. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's just so much better for that. Now, something that comes up with my clients a lot is, they're more susceptible to chipping. What are your thoughts on that?
We hear that a lot too. The edges of stone can chip. Well, if you really want to damage something, you can. But I understand that if the edges are mitered and there's no sharp corner, then there's no issues of anything chipping. And also it depends on how heavy duty utensils you use. I'm sure we don't, like with a frying pan, should not chip that edge. I haven't experienced that myself, or none of my friends have. But have you had?
No, I haven't either. And look, I've actually got a particular sink that's undermounted where the edges then go into you can still see a little bit of the sink. So I think it protects the edges as well.
Yes.
So that works really well. And you've just got this rim that you can really easily clean, but it's still an undermount. I think that really protects the edge. So what about flush mount? That's probably the next best.
Yeah, so flush mount is basically where it's not inset nor is it undermount, but it kind of sits flush with your stone. It's a beautiful, beautiful look, but I think you need an absolutely genius stonemason to make that happen, because it's such precision to, grind the stone just that 2 or 3 mil lower, and just for it to sit in perfectly. So flush mount basically just, you can still see it from the top, the rim of the sink, you can see it from the top, and it continues on to the bench.
But it is it's flush, sorry.
Yeah, but neither here nor there really. It's there's not a huge market for it, but we definitely find some people like the look of it.
And then inset
is inset's the oldest style, where it's a molded sink and you just drop it in. So the cutting underneath can be whatever; it doesn't have to be precise. Inset sinks are the lowest in terms of price. So again, flipping houses, okay to do. And yeah, it's basically just that lip to go over and protect laminate tops or timber bench tops, to protect them from any water seeping.
Yeah, well, you can't use anything but an inset with the timber or the laminate. So in terms of pricing, then you've talked about inset. So undermounts then the most expensive types of sinks as yeah. But it's definitely aesthetically the most pleasing, and I really like using them where we don't have the stainless steel drainer. We've actually got that integrated into the bench. So really, it's just a really clean look.
It is, and the easiest to clean also.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what would be some of the buying criteria when you're looking at a sink? Is there anything else apart from what we've spoken about now? Obviously, the aesthetic is one thing. We've talked about the different types of composition of the metal, and then also the gauge of the stainless steel. Is there anything else that buyers need to be aware of when looking for their sink?
Just the depth, as well as the position of the waist. The depth of the sink, depending on the kinds of utensils you use for cooking. If you need something with a greater depth, if you soak a lot of things in there, then consider depth of sink. And the other thing is the position of the waist. So traditionally, the waist was always in the center of the sink. Now they've moved towards the back of the sink. That gives you more space underneath in the cabinetry, towards the front.
Yeah, which is great if you want to have bins and other bits and pieces under your sink, especially when it's tight in a small kitchen. So that's great advice. And do you find then it's a lot of the higher end sinks that are having the waste at the back rather than the middle?
That's right.
Yeah, so that's another thing you're paying for as well then.
Absolutely.
All right, and then the next thing about black is the black sink. So again, this is, I suppose, a little bit like taps. You really get what you pay for. So just walk the listeners through what is the difference in a black sink, and what do you need to look for if you want one that's going to last and not cheap and the black wears off? Because it does.
Yeah, so coloured sinks, black especially, are amazing. I've had such good reviews from customers after using them as well.
Mm-hmm.
How they're manufactured is 80% is crushed stone or crushed granite, and 20% is resin or acrylic that binds the stone material together. So
like a stone bench top, really.
Exactly. So it's like an engineered stone bench top in a sink, but it obviously needs to be slightly lighter in weight compared to a stone top. So they've geniusly manufactured this material that's it's as strong as stone. It's got a sanitized material on top of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, this is not all brands. I was talking about Frankie as a leading brand in creating Fragranite sinks. So they're super strong. The stainless steel cannot have a coating on it that stops bacteria from growing on it. However, this material can.
Awesome.
So sanitization and non-porous. They're not porous either, so you won't have anything living or breathing in the material. And they are scratch resistant.
Yeah.
So
Go on.
We normally take our customers in the showroom to our kitchen display area and scratch a fork. We use a fork to scratch the sink to show them how it does not scratch. And even if someone had to stab it with a knife, it's the material is through and through. So it's not just a coating on top, and the material goes through and through. So that these are qualities of the better sinks. Quite a few good brands manufacture these things actually. So Frankie, Abbey, Oliveri as well. And
so what about some of the cost-effective black sinks? So they're getting the aesthetic, but they're not going to get any of the advantages that you've just talked about, because what I'm seeing on a lot of the forums is they're scratching really badly, but also the colours coming off. So how are they manufactured differently?
So that again is the different composition. There could be the quality of stone and resin that they use, the percentages of products that they use, the kind of a formula. It's about getting the formula right as well. And it being not the same material through and through, but being just a coating on an acrylic sink, for example.
So it's not actually then necessarily made out of stone. It's actually made out of acrylic or a coating. So if people are looking at wanting a black sink that's really good quality, they need to then look at a sink that is made out of a stone composite that's got the resin and the stone in it, because they know that colour is going to go through, so scratches won't show up. Rather than that's what they need to look for if they want a quality black sink, from what I'm hearing.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Reliable brand, I think, just helps.
It does.
Just the peace of mind that you get out. And warranties on all the black as well as stainless steel sinks. A good quality sink should really last you a lifetime. So we offer 50-year warranty on sinks, so 50 years.
Wow. Is that through Reece or is that through the brand?
Through the brand.
Because I know Reece offer different warranties for their products, because they're going to back their products different to if people are buying things elsewhere. So I was just checking whether that's also the same with the sink. So it's through the brand.
Yeah.
That's really, if you're buying a cheap sink, I don't think they're going to give you a 50-year warranty.
No.
Yeah. So again, you really get what you pay for in a sink. And I think, like I was saying about the tap, when you're going to be using that sink and it's going to be doing, all that heavy stuff that you put in it and everything else, that sink is just, even though it's not really a visual thing, it needs to perform so much harder for you than, say, your bathroom sink. So it's really worth investing.
Absolutely, spot on with that.
All right. So on the last question, which is quite controversial, I think, and I think it comes down to personal preference and just what's going on in the kitchen. But I wanted to ask you what your view was on the black sink and the black tap. Should they be seen together or should they not be seen together? What's your view?
It's a tricky one. It's a very, very tricky one. I think in some situations it could work, but it's not necessary that you match them both together completely 100%. Because as we discussed in the beginning, your tap is kind of your show, your center of
I can't even think of the word myself. It's the showpiece.
Showpiece.
It's a showpiece.
It is a showpiece, so it can be anything you want it to be. So I don't think it needs to match necessarily. A lot of our customers find matching it with the chrome or stainless steel part of the waste that's inside the kitchen sink. So matching the tap to that, or making it a combination of black and chrome or black and brushed nickel, as you can see with appliances as well. So matching your the finish of your tap with the handle of the appliances, or door handles on cabinetry, cabinetry handles, splashback. Or if you want to do pick a color from some beautiful tiles, like I know you have in your kitchen. And so if you want to pick a random color from some beautiful tiles and make that a hero, yes, that's what we find people gravitating towards.
Yeah, and I know we're having a bit of a conversation offline about it, and being able, if you've got a really industrial style kitchen and you can get away with having it really heavy, because I suppose my view is the black tap and the black sink is quite heavy aesthetically. And I love the combination. I mean, I really love the Abbey tap that's got the pull-out nozzle, which is black, and the lever's black, and that's all, but it's chrome. So it's almost like a little bit of a marrying in with the black sink without it being too heavy. But I think, to your point, it really does come down to what else is going on in that kitchen. And I think, as I've said in so many other episodes, you need to look at the whole scheme. You can't just look at that in isolation. You need to look at everything else that's going on so that you can coordinate it back to something else that's going on in that kitchen, like you said, with the handles or so forth. So it's really important to think about everything. But I think we're probably in agreement that black on black is probably going to be too heavy in most instances. But again, looking at it with everything else that's going on. That's great. I'm glad we covered that off. Thank you so much again for joining this podcast. It's been so informative. I've learned about the new PVD on the taps, which is fabulous, brand new finish. And I think that there's some really awesome information in there for people to go away and really think about why it's worth investing that little bit more to make sure that you're getting stuff that's going to last for your forever home, which is really what this is all about. So thank you so much again. And everyone can go down to Reece, local Reece showroom, or reece.com.au. You've got such awesome information on your website as well.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Trish. We'll see you soon.
See you.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of My Forever Home. If you're ready to renovate or build a new home and you need help to create a beautiful and functional forever home, you can book a chat with me directly at whitepebbleinteriors.com.au/chat. Have a great day.